Are you tired of your valuable ideas and suggestions getting lost in the shuffle? Well, that is why I'm introducing Direct Suggest, the revolutionary digital suggestion box that puts your voice front and center. With Direct Suggest, you have the power to make a difference in your organization. Direct Suggest provides value to organizations in various industries worldwide, including notable brands like Comcast, TD Bank, and Nokia. And here's the best part. Direct Suggest only costs 50 cents per employee per month, making it an affordable solution for businesses of all sizes. Plus, they have an incredibly high ROI and savings potential with an average 33 times return on investment. The implementation process is also a breeze. Once committed, setting up Direct Suggest from start to finish can be completed in as quickly as a week or less. Don't let your ideas or your team's ideas go unnoticed. Visit directsuggest.com today and start by making a difference with Direct Suggest. Use the promo code HUMANHR for your extended 60-day free trial. Again, visit directsuggest.com to learn more, and remember to use promo code HUMANHR for an extended free trial. Direct Suggest, where your voice matters. Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. I'm Tracy Chernoff, and I've spent my entire professional career in HR. Each week, we'll explore the delicate balance between people and business with the aim to reconnect the two and create meaningful outcomes. Listen in as I share my own experiences, challenge the status quo, and chat with guests from various industries about our mission to bring the human back to human resources. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another week. If you're wondering where the heck I am in an RV, so you'll find that throughout these, well, actually, by the time this episode comes out, I probably will have some more episodes that don't put me in an RV, but nevertheless, here I am. It's a traveling circus on my side of the fence these days, but let's move on. I'm really excited to share with you that this week we have Joshua Driver on the podcast. He is the founder of Selflessly, an all-inclusive software platform designed to create, manage, and report on a company's philanthropy and corporate social responsibility programs, aka CSR. Selflessly was Indiana's first dual-certified B-Corp and domestic benefit corporation and certified LGBTQBE from the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. So, Joshua, thank you so much for joining the podcast this week. We're really excited to have you, and this is such an important topic.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yes, amazing. Well, you are the resident expert on giving back and truly being selfless, hence selflessly. So tell us a little bit about how you created Selflessly, where the inspiration to create Selflessly came from and how all of that started.
Yeah, I've been building tech companies for several years, helping nonprofits with different internal operations, whether it was fundraising, donor management, volunteer management. I've always had a goal to integrate technology into the nonprofit space to help organizations run more efficient. And as I started my own nonprofit and joined boards, was starting to see where it was becoming really tedious for those relationships between the nonprofit side and the for-profit side. And it wasn't for a lack of interest from both sides to work together. It just was very manual. And then there was some attempt to bring technology into that relationship previously, but had become antiquated, expensive. It was really causing more problems than solutions. So looking at the generations that are in the workforce today and that are coming up, really needed some innovation in the space. It kind of turned my the startup side of my brain on again and thought, well, this is something I should dive into and tackle for the benefit of nonprofits.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, first of all, when I think about nonprofits and corporate social responsibility, philanthropy, all of these buzzwords, so to speak, I think when we think about companies that are in the for-profit sector or maybe even private companies, there's obviously a lot that they can do to focus on CSR and company initiatives, let's say, to give back and to be philanthropic. Why would you say every company, because I know we talked about this before, why every company needs to be giving back. What is the inspiration there? What's the way that we can educate companies and their leaders on the importance of giving back and doing it in a way that's not only authentic to them, but also authentic in general, so that it's not perceived as this, performative action?
Yeah, I think when I came up with the idea for Selflessly back in 2017 and started to talk about it, this was a very much a nice to have, like a fringe benefit, something that created some feel good stories, maybe a little bit of PR. Whereas we saw after that, and then with the pandemic, we saw employees and consumers alike really looking at brands and or the product services that they purchase, and really starting to do a deep dive into how ethical the company is, or where they stand perhaps on social issues, or if I have to choose between these two products, what's how much of that money is coming back into my community or helping with causes that I care about. uh, and so we found that from an employer branding side, so I'm trying to attract and retain great employees. I'm trying to keep our consumers interested in what we're about, and at the same time, really create a culture that people can connect on and circle around. It became a necessary. And
Mm.
oftentimes we see campaigns in marketing, especially from B-Corps like Patagonia or Tom's, when they start talking about you buy a pair of shoes, give a pair of shoes back. That accelerates the brand and the marketing message, sometimes even better than SEO strategies and
Sure.
cross channel marketing. And so that organic growth creates more brand trust. So of course, there's the box checkers that are like, well, let's donate X amount of money so that we can generate some good PR, maybe get a couple new employees and desks. But we really are finding now with social media, more of the transparency in business operations, that you have to become more authentic and really start representing your employees, your stakeholders, and across not just charities, but also the environment, social issues, diversity and inclusion. And people will make buying decisions based on how you react, or in some cases don't react to those initiatives. So it almost has to begin at the beginning of when you start a company. We have several startups that are 1 to 5 employees that have been that they may not even have a product in the marketplace, but they're offering volunteer time off as a benefit to their employees, which is kind of
Mm.
exciting and neat to see.
Yeah, the volunteer time off is something that I love. I have had that in my past, and it's such a great way to kind of like flip the script on what it means to be giving back. Like, it doesn't always have to be something monetary from a company. It is okay for a company to say, you know what, we totally did not figure this out in the budget. And so instead of, you know, putting some, X amount of dollars into, our initiatives here, let's put it on the company to allow employees to do what they are so passionate about doing, because so many people outside of work contribute to organizations or give back to organizations with their time or their money, but especially with their time. That's probably, I mean, you would probably know better than I, but that's probably where most of volunteer efforts come from, is in the actual time spent. And so many organizations need more hands-on volunteers rather than just, the financial support, which obviously does go a long way as well. But it's interesting to see how companies are, taking a more creative approach if the budget is maybe just not tolerable for, giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to different organizations. Does that sound fair?
Absolutely. So common reasons that so our system, we really focus on giving all channels to all companies. For a long time, it's been very separate. In workplace giving, matching donations is great. And nonprofits love it because they get a bigger check and everybody wins. But what we've started to see in some of the feedback is that the entry level employee isn't necessarily making what the CEO is at the company. And with
Right.
all kinds of external financial responsibilities, housing, daycare, healthcare, school loans, etc., having a matching gift program is awesome, but it's not necessarily feasible for an entry level employee to even meet their match threshold. So how can we offset that with things like volunteering so they still get the positive effects of being able to contribute back? But at the same time, also, if we're thinking about mental health and burnout, we obviously can't put all of our employees on a plane and go down to Florida for a week, but this is
I
a
wish.
great opportunity. I know. As I'm saying that, I'm looking out the clouds and I'm like, man, it'd be nice to
Yeah,
go to
right.
it's a great happy medium to be getting out of the office, disconnect from the email for the day, go work on something that you care about that hopefully has some type of instant gratification for the employee, perhaps even learning some soft skills and productivity lessons that they can bring back to work. I think it's such a it's a broader discussion. I think there's a lot of positive benefits outside of just, well, I painted a house.
Right.
Well, you also got to do some teamwork. You got to know your employee, your colleagues outside of work. You got to get outside instead of being stuck in the office all day. And those are things that aren't necessarily as quantifiable, but can bring real impact back to the workplace. So we do have companies that will come to us and they know what the salary is of every employee. And so if I let all my employees out for 2 hours, that costs our company X amount of money. And so,
Right.
well, okay, maybe that's what the Excel sheet is saying, but here's all the other things you're going to save money on. And at the same time, authentically, get out and make an impact and also get your brand out there. Like,
Yeah.
I understand that there are very analytical people in this world. I'm jealous. I try to avoid Excel and data as much as possible, but let's turn on your heart light a little bit and think about the positive effects there. And
Right.
so we can kind of break down or peel back the onion, so to speak, with some of those more numbers driven executives through
Right.
that.
No, I love that. I love that. It's so important. I mean, when you think about like what 3 hours or 4 hours of someone's day when they're stepping outside of their office, whether it's a physical office or a home office, and they're going to meet with their colleagues and they're doing something that's maybe fun. It's you're giving back. You're doing something that is just genuinely like a feel good activity. It does so much more for those individuals who are participating as well as those who are watching, from the outside looking in, not part of the company, to your point, like spreading this brand awareness. There's so much impact there. And it brings me back to a time in one of my last roles, like at one of my last companies, where we would do like different like park cleanups in the city and things like that. And it was just always such a fun day, even though you're out in the sun and you're sweating and you're cleaning up trash and you have no idea where this trash comes from. And it's New York City, so you really never know what you're going to find. Like it was just always such an enjoyable day, and it really like reinvigorates people, and it is an engagement driver in so many ways. So I like this approach that you're taking, that certainly there's like the analytical side that you could calculate how much that time is donating in terms of, or like what that looks like quantifiably, but the qualitative measures that positive effects that come out of that are totally insurmountable. I mean, it's really such an opportunity to get people further connected as well.
And I think we're at the point too where if your company is not doing it, your competitor most likely is. So
That's
just
right.
from the competitive side, you gotta keep up with that. I'm not saying we're at
Yes.
401k or health insurance level yet, but we are benefits like what our system provides has started to become maybe in that second tier of benefits that employees are expecting to have as a part of their benefits package.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. I'm curious because as I was really thinking about our discussion this morning before we started recording, I was thinking about the potential impact that COVID might have had on Selflessly. And I say that because, I definitely think that there was a shift societally in the United States, at least, where everyone's home and we're all thinking about our lives. And I've talked about this so many times on the podcast. I'm sure my listeners who have been around a while are like, we get it. So much changed, so much happened. But I share this because I think COVID was really like a pivotal moment for people to really think about the organizations that they care about, the initiatives that they care about, what they expect their companies to do in terms of whether it's like DE&I or belonging, giving back, and things like that. Was there an impact that COVID or that time had on Selflessly and even your clients?
Yeah, I mean, we launched our system in January of 2020, which is perfect time. Boring year, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing too interesting happened. Maybe murder hornets
Right.
for a brief period.
Oh my gosh, right.
The story that needs to be told is murder hornets, but that's okay.
Right, that's right.
Interestingly enough, you have this combination of, from a manager or leadership perspective, what is my company going to look like? How are we going to exist without having everybody in the office? What is that going to look like? So the first probably like quarter to half of the year was a lot of, okay, how do we continue operations without knowing what the future holds? So from our perspective, we actually stopped operations and building our software and actually refocused on the nonprofits and how do we connect with nonprofits that are now getting zero funding because everyone's holding on to their money because they don't know what's going to happen, and then have zero volunteer opportunities. And how do we keep these nonprofits afloat? And so for several months, we hosted a webinar series to help with executive director burnout and how to keep things positive, and bringing technology partners on and how to virtualize their volunteer programs or how to keep the conversation going. So we focused on that. And then finally, when our companies that we had pre-sold the software to, and HR had all of their, everyone's working remote. Then the task was, how do I keep my employee engaged now? Because they're working from home. They're not coming into the office and being able to connect and communicate with everybody. They may not be used to working from home. Now there's all of these extra distractions like Netflix, Hulu. I really felt for our staff that had kids in the next room having to be on Zoom all day. I can barely do that as an adult. If I was 10 years old in this time, I don't know, my parents would have to crate me or something. I would be going crazy. But what can we do to bring the teams back together? And at the same time, from a mental health perspective, we're watching the pandemic take over things, change things, restaurants, all these things closing. It was really easy to feel helpless and like, what can I do to even give back? I'm not a nurse. I'm not a microbiologist. What can I do to be helping during this time? And so we really adapted and worked with nonprofits to create virtual programming. And also, what could we bring into the home that families could do while they're stuck inside? So a lot of, mask building, a lot of coloring books to send, pictures to kids in the hospital, a lot of care packages to families that were experiencing loss from somebody who didn't make it through their COVID illness. And so we really had to think outside of the box and took on that responsibility. It's really easy for us to say, here's your workplace giving, best of luck, see you later. But we thought we didn't want philanthropy, giving back, and the quote unquote selflessness to go away while we're waiting on a vaccine or some light at the end of the tunnel. So we used up quite a bit of our brain cells, thinking about what that meant. And at the same time, I think, I know from the feedback that we got from our users, they appreciated when we had a new idea for them on how they could give back, how they could support teachers that were dealing with, 20 kids on a Zoom call, and kind of expanded philanthropy to not just be making a donation to, say, the United Way, but also helping that elderly neighbor down the street get her groceries from her door into her kitchen if they're too heavy. Or what does philanthropy look like, not just in the charitable sector, but really helping with the greater good. And so I think it instilled a lot of selflessness, and maybe people are starting to subconsciously think about, what can I be doing better in my existing day, or considering other people as I go about my life. And so we've seen a steady increase post-pandemic. I'm hoping we're post-pandemic.
I know, right?
But I think that we've seen activity go up, and I think the pandemic has something to do with that, in that we could be in this same position again. And people do need to operationalize, work together, and get through these situations as a village versus just on our own. And so I would say there weren't a ton of silver linings with the pandemic, but one of those, I think, is we have seen an increase in people willing to help others from post that experience.
The growth of any business relies on the workforce behind it, and Namely knows that if you can wow your people, you can power your business. Namely is the all-in-one HR solution that empowers you to engage and develop your people in an intuitive platform, so you can make your life easier and your employees happier. Namely's award-winning technology gives your employees the career and connections they need to truly become part of your business. Whether you have 20 or 1,000 employees, Namely handles the essential HR, payroll, and compliance needs all through their modern and integrated platform. With Namely, your team stays engaged with a seamless interface and self-service tools to request PTO, acknowledge peers, review pay stubs, and enroll in benefits, while you get the time and data you need to focus on your core business initiatives. As Namely helps you easily handle everything from onboarding, payroll, time tracking, open enrollment, employee engagement, and so much more. Make your life easier and power your business with Namely today. Learn how you can simplify your HR processes today at namely.com. That's namely.com. If your company is remote or hybrid, then you know just how difficult it can be to grow your company's culture beyond a pre-scheduled Zoom happy hour or occasional lunch and learn. Well, this week's sponsor is here to solve that. They're called CultureBot. CultureBot has devised what will likely become the gold standard for growing and blossoming a company culture inside of Slack. The app is like a sidekick for any HR or people professional, automating a lot of the mundane tasks you probably are forgetting to do on a daily basis. Things like birthday and work anniversary celebrations, team shoutouts and kudos, employee introductions, and remote games. It even has health and wellness tips and conversation starters. If that piques your interest, this will get you even more excited. Today, I'm able to share a special promotion for listeners of the podcast. You can get your first 6 months of CultureBot for 50% off. Plus, if your team is under 25 employees, CultureBot is free forever. So if you're looking for a way to create a culture of appreciation and drive increased engagement and togetherness across your team, I definitely recommend checking out CultureBot. Go to getculturebot.com/humanhr. That's getculturebot.com/humanhr to get the offer. Plus, I've added the link in the show notes so you can just click right there. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
That's wonderful. I mean, I think if there's anything that COVID enabled all of us to do was to think differently about approaches that we otherwise would have taken in a different way. And even as you were describing how you had to use all of this brain power, everyone on your team, and contributed to thinking through what the next phase, the first phase of Selflessly was, let alone the next phase, and how to not only stay competitive, but to really appeal to the ever-changing times. I mean, that is a perfect example of what really probably every single company had to do, and or every single person, from healthcare workers to teachers to students. I mean, it really had us all confronting how we operated in terms of like normal times and pre-COVID times, and what COVID required us to do and change. And, this whole conversation that we're having today has made me think about an episode that I did a little while back. It was episode 122 with David Lattin, who is the head of procurement at Logitech.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's such a fascinating guy. And we were talking about advancing gender equality and supplier diversity through company spend. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever met David, but actually the two of you would totally hit it off. So if you don't know him, or if you haven't met or you haven't connected, I will absolutely connect you, because
Yeah.
all of our conversation today has really made me think about how, with him and his team at Logitech, one of the key focuses that they've had is to make sure that they're spending their money, which they have a lot of it, and obviously with a lot of money can come a lot of influence, that they're spending their money in ways, or investing their money in ways that is ultimately giving back or focused on the greater good, and focusing on supplier diversity. So when they choose between company A and company B, thinking through, well, is it minority owned, is it woman owned, is it a B Corp, like what are the different, like I guess categories that these companies are not only a part of, but also, do they care and do they proactively focus on DE&I? Are they doing the things that Logitech cares so much about? And so our conversation today really made me think about my conversation with David a number of weeks ago, because of the just some of the things that he talked about, as far as like the trillions of dollars of spend that are currently going to all of these companies that aren't necessarily putting their money where their mouths are. And so when I think about how you're sharing, companies doing things authentically and what philanthropy means, and how from with COVID, you really kind of like push the envelope to expand this definition of philanthropy, that companies can also think, can go back to this idea that they can also think about how they're spending their money and with whom they're spending their money. So that just made me nostalgic of that episode, of that conversation.
It's an interesting dichotomy. We're a certified B Corp. We're an LGBTQ owned company. We're super rare. there are
Yeah.
maybe, I think I talked to the B Corp once. There's maybe 3 LGBTQ owned certified B Corps globally,
Oh my God.
and an interesting thing about there's always the point counterpoint on supplier diversity. And the interesting thing, and not that I'm the spokesperson for the LGBTQ community, but a lot of us started our businesses because we were fired from another company for being who we were. And fortunately, that was not my case. I've been very lucky, but a lot of my peers have. And so, and we're based in Indianapolis, Indiana, not exactly the beacon of progressiveness and diversity here.
Right. Right.
And so we do have unique challenges in getting the same access as somebody, in Silicon Valley, or that might have more state incentives or something for companies like ours. And so we really rely on those opportunities. But I do think, conversely, we bring a different perspective to the table with our technology. We've been through some things that a lot of maybe our competitors haven't, and so we can bring a degree of empathy and experience that is more of a lived lesson that you can only teach if you've been through it. And we find that in a lot of our even in our UI and the way that we build our technology, we're really thinking about a diverse workforce. What tools would that entry level employee need that maybe the CEO doesn't, and vice versa? And how do we create more accessibility there? And I think that I just think that there's so much opportunity there because you have this insight of knowing what it's like to be denied something or not
Mm-hmm.
have the same opportunity. So you have to get creative and figure out how to get out there and work around some of those obstacles.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I'm biased, obviously, love it, but at the same time, there is, it's not. I understand that there's a counterpoint that you're giving more opportunity to these people just because they happen to be of a certain gender identity or sexual orientation, but it's certainly not a free ride. I'm certain, we don't just give subpar technology because we can get away with it because we're gay. Like it doesn't work that way. It's not in the contract that they
That would
don't.
be
So
great, but right.
if anyone wants to put that in there, be happy to to decrease our service level agreement. But
That's hysterical.
it is helpful for us to get an opportunity to work with companies like Logitech because we don't have the same access to investors and maybe even the same network to get in front of a David or the like to be able to even pitch them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I understand the perception from outside of that ecosystem on supplier diversity. I understand, but there are some significant challenges that minority groups face in building a business, and so
Yeah.
it's nice to be assist to at
Right.
least get it.
Right, right. This, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think this was something that actually came up in our discussion that if, unless a company is really thinking about this, think about all of the missed opportunities, all of the people or the, companies like Selflessly that are owned and operated by groups that do provide supplier diversity that otherwise would be missed, because a company could just say, oh, well, we're just going to go with the most competitive price, or we're going to go with, someone that we've worked with in the past who may or may not be, categorically diverse as a supplier. And so it's just a very interesting, kind of concept to think about how when companies just switch their mindset to, okay, we're going to put in 2 times more effort than we already do to at least have, maybe we're looking at 3 suppliers, and let's make sure that at least one of them comes from a diverse background, whether it is racial or gender or sexual orientation, whatever that might be, that makes them a diverse supplier in that category. And it really, I mean, it's the kind of the same mentality that we've already talked about with philanthropic approaches and actions, but also on like the HR side, even thinking more in a more detailed way when we think about recruitment. If you're not putting the intention to have a diverse pool of candidates, you're never going to have a diverse team. And so it's just like all it takes is that one shift in the thought process, one shift in mindset from one company to make a huge difference. And so I'm glad that we've been able to kind of circle back to that type of conversation because, to your point, I mean, you like Selflessly falls under this category. And if one business like Logitech or someone else thinks a little bit differently about how they can procure suppliers that are considered diverse in various ways, that that makes a huge difference not only for you and your team but also for their teams as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've, at least from my perspective too, based in Indiana, I really feel the responsibility to be successful with the company and really
Mm,
drive our visibility because it's tough to be an LGBTQ youth right now. I won't
mhm,
get into the politics of it, but being able to be visible in that, yes, just because you're a trans person doesn't mean that if you want to start a company, you can't do it. And so
mm.
we have to fight through some of the hurdles because we need to be out there and showing that it is possible to thrive as a member of our community and still equate the same, get force, the discussion around getting the same opportunities so that it doesn't feel like it's going to be an ongoing battle. That's how I work through it in therapy, I guess. So I'm just assuming that's how everybody else will process it.
No, it's absolutely fair. I mean, that's like the definition of equity, right? Is enabling everyone to have the same opportunities. It's not saying that we're all treated the same way, although obviously equality would be a great thing. But equity at a minimum is what everyone needs in order to be able to have opportunity to build a business, to have, to be successful as a business owner, and, whatever else kind of comes to mind when it comes to equity.
Yep.
Just kind of rounding out our conversation here, I know we've talked a ton about like the ethos of CSR and philanthropy and giving back. What can, for the listeners who are tuning in, what can we share with them as far as how to physically and tactfully create programs, how to even like explain or pitch these benefits to executives? Like, what are some of the quantifiable things that they can do, or the data that they can leverage as far as how these types of programs can benefit companies? And what would we say is, just kind of, again, generalizing this, is the best way to kickstart a program?
Yeah. So our biggest competitor is a Google form, quite frankly. That's where a lot of companies come to us. They'll start a matching gift program, or they'll set up a form where employees can log their volunteer hours internally. Which is great. However, it's generally falling into the laps of the overworked HR administrator that has to do actual like HR stuff in this. So, our smallest company is a 2-person quilting store. Our largest is tens of thousands of employees, and as much as their needs may be different, the intentions are the same. And so we really like to, if we're talking to a business owner or somebody in a leadership position, take an audit of your company. What are my services or products that I provide? And is there something that we could give away that could be great for a silent auction item? Or if I own a web development company, maybe we should go and reach out to a nonprofit that's operating their website off of a MySpace page or something, and let's get them a legitimate, Squarespace or Wix or something. Right. So it can be as simple as that. But we have a template of like an employee survey that people can send out to survey their employees. Like, what do you care about? What's interesting to you? Do you think we should be even considering the issues affecting our community or causes? And 10 times out of 10, employees are like, it would be really great if I'm on this board of this dog rescue. It would be great if I could leave work for an hour to go pick up a dog in southern Indiana and bring him into the fostering system. Because if it's not talked about, employees generally don't feel like they're empowered to be able to do things like that. And so for leadership to send something out and say, we feel called to be giving back. What does that mean to you? Because it can mean, I say for every 10 employees, there's 10 different ways that they would like to be giving back, or 10 different causes. And so being able to get the insight for the employees increases participation, but also starts to create a new connection between managers and subordinates, and that, wow, they really do want us to be able to live our best life, or they do want to empower us to be able to work on things that we care about as a part of our work day. So that's a great start. And then where we come in is generally when the excitement has taken over and now the HR person is committed to have to report on it, we're here to save them. And really the data and the information that you can get out of a system like ours. We track, obviously, the aggregated hours, the aggregated dollars that have been donated across causes by name, cause types, the value of products and services that have been donated or grants. But where we're really starting to get into the bigger discussion and what we're excited about is we're working with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So ESG is a very polarizing political term right now. So we've decided to go towards the Sustainable Development Goals as a way to diversify the E, S, and G into bigger buckets. So we can now look at 17 different ways companies are investing in the betterment of society. And then also, I mean, we're basically like a hub for content for social media. Employees, as they volunteer, they can upload photos, talk about their experience, what they did, what the value was of that. And so it's really easy for that social media marketer to log in and export 3 to 6 months worth of content to be able to pre-program and send out. But having the analytics, we have companies that are Pledge 1% members where they're donating 1% of time, 1% of revenue, 1% of infrastructure back to charities. We can actually now track that and make sure they're staying compliant with that pledge. That wasn't available before. And so anything that would be great for a social impact report can come out of our system if you are a B-Corp, managing your compliance there. And so that's the real exciting thing to see at the end of the year is the impact. And most of our users have reported, like, I had no idea that I did this much throughout the year. The only way I measured it was during tax time. I'm digging through my inbox trying to find the receipts of donations paid. So,
That's usually my MO.
Oh, same. So, but it creates a really cool timeline and story that I think is something employees should be proud of, even on an individual level, that they've made the commitment to do for others instead of constantly focusing on what would be best or what's going to benefit me the most. And I think that's important.
That's amazing. Amazing advice all around. I think the listeners are hopefully going to take so much away from this episode. So thank you so much again for joining the podcast. This has been so enlightening and inspiring and everything in between. And by the time this episode comes out, it'll be November. So everyone will be hopefully thinking about their upcoming year strategy and budget, hopefully. So for everyone listening, really keep Joshua's words in mind, keep selflessly in mind, and just keep these initiatives in mind so that you can really make a plan for 2024. I can't even believe it's 2024 almost, to be able to give back and have these programs. So Joshua, thank you so much. I'd love to give you a moment to share where everyone can connect with you and Selflessly and keep the conversation going.
Yeah, you can find us at selflessly.io is our website. Our social media channels are at Give Selflessly. And if you want pictures of my English bulldog, you can go to Josh Driver Show on my socials. It's really not, it's just pictures of him, not really anything too exciting. But yeah. We're here. We've been fortunate enough to not only hire tech people, but also nonprofit people too. So if you do have questions and are thinking about implementing a program, we can talk through that kind of stuff. And I'm glad this is coming out at the beginning of November because Giving Tuesday is about 30 days out after this will air. And Giving Tuesday is a day for corporate participation. And so I'm sure we'll have some cool programs and things we can provide tool-wise so companies can participate for Giving Tuesday, which is our busiest day of the year. Our busiest day of the year. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm really glad that this timing is working out so great.
perfect timing.
That's amazing. Well, thank you again, Joshua. Really appreciate your time and everything that you and Selflessly are doing.
Likewise, thank you so much for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Hey, just before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the show so that you are the first to hear when an episode drops each week. And maybe leave a 5-star review and a comment about how much you loved this episode. Plus, if you have someone in mind who would really enjoy this episode, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.